I have a bit of history with Rivals of Aether. I used to grind this game non-stop. I'd take it to my locals and push the game on just about anyone who'd give me an ear to listen. I absolutely loved it, but as the pandemic rolled around, I sort of just slowed down and stopped playing, kind of moved on to more traditional fighting games, but then the Rivals 2 Kickstarter was announced, and I decided I'd throw some money at it. I thought to myself, Rivals 1 brought me a lot of joy, the team was amazing, I want to give back and maybe I'll play Rivals of Aether 2 just casually or something. But as each beta weekend came and went, I never really had the drive to hop on and try it. But as the Next Fest demo dropped, I sorta just said screw it, let's try it, and all I can say was I was missing out. Before we get started, if you like niche, indie, or old school fighting game content, make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. I got quite a few interesting ideas in the queue that I am looking forward to making for you all. And if you want to join my community, we have a Discord server linked down in the description below. Rivals of Aether 2 has overhauled many of the things that made the original so unique to fall more in line with what most people would expect out of a modern day platform fighter. And I'm not gonna lie, this game definitely felt a bit uninspired when I started playing it. Mechanically, the original game only had parry and rolls to defend yourself, and this made the game much more focused on like a hyper offensive, trying to juke your opponent with some tricky movement, and it was definitely a treat to experience. But in the sequel, they added some more standard stuff like shields, grabs, and ledges. This led me to the initial reaction of seeing this game as sort of like a Melee light experience, but as I spent more time with the game, it started to grow on me. The original movement and high-risk parry dynamic, it's still there, but it's a very different game, and mechanically, I would still say it doesn't feel as unique, but one thing was able to make it stand on its own, and that is the characters. Each entry on the roster has a very unique feeling, and they have their own mechanics as well, sort of reminiscent of something like Guilty Gear or BlazBlue, but in a platform fighter genre. Typically, these unique mechanics will control some sort of space or make your opponent want to behave like a little bit differently. You have Zetterburn having moves that place fire, and if an opponent lands in it, or they get caught on fire by a move that you throw, they'll begin to take damage and take more knockback from smash attacks. Then there is Rano, who can apply poison stacks that will damage the opponent if they use a move and will only go down if they make contact. Then he can create a big bubble that will trap an opponent, and the more stacks that they have, the longer they stay in the bubble, giving Rano a chance to rack up big damage. Each character in this game has something sort of like this, and this is really what makes the game unique. One thing I want to highlight is the way the game handles execution barriers. Games like Melee are full of just very difficult but fun to do stuff, but they did manage to implement a lot of that into Rivals 2, but it didn't dumb down the experience at all. Fighting games have had this trend of controversially dumbing things down and making it more quote-unquote accessible for new players, but in the process they sometimes lose what makes that thing special in the first place. Rivals 2 has a lot of techniques like wave dashing and shield dropping, but they're significantly easier to perform, but the mental complexity of using these mechanics is still entirely intact. This results in the game feeling like absolute butter to move in. I'm a firm believer, if a platform fighter isn't fun to move around in, it's simply not worth playing. And Rivals 2 is an absolute blast to move around in. The way they handled the feel of this game is top notch, and if you were ever put off by learning Melee because of its high execution demands, definitely try this game out. You will not be disappointed. But if you're coming from a game like Melee or Project M, you'll actually still be able to easily perform these things, and I expected there to be some sort of transition period. Maybe there was some quirk or something that just didn't quite correlate perfectly, but personally, I had no transition period. I was able to just jump in, wave dash, shield drop, just as I expected, and it just seems to have come together in like this perfect mix of just movement tech that's not only easier to pull off, but satisfying to do so as well. As for how I've personally been experiencing the game, I've been enjoying Rano and Orcane a lot. I guess I'm sort of just falling into a water specialist role. I am also really hopeful Aether gets in. He's a character I enjoyed a lot in the original game. I was an Ori main in Rivals 1, but I'm not holding out any hope that the guest characters are coming back, but we'll see. Maybe it's just the mechanics of these two that I really enjoy. I think like maybe the water characters seem a little bit more like trap or conditioning focused, like Rano Bubble or Orcane Bubbles as well. Both completely different things, but I just realized they're both bubbles. But I do like kind of how like Rano will get your opponent scared, then they shield a little bit too long, and then they get command grabbed, and then you put them into a bubble and do a bunch of damage. And then with Orcane, he's got an amazing tech chase game. I didn't expect them to give Orcane like down throw tech chase shenanigans. But pair that with something like powered up puddle attacks, and there's absolutely ways to just psych out your opponent, because you place a puddle down and they're like, oh, they can't tech to the right because they don't want to get hit by puddle. So you just, oh yeah, they're probably going to tech to the left, and then you just call it out over and over again, and then eventually they're like, oh, maybe I should just tech to the puddle. They're not going to expect that, and then you just get a big punish off of it. It's a really satisfying gameplay loop, in my opinion. I played Sheik in Melee and Project Plus, so I like tech chasing. I think Melee Sheik down throw tech chasing is a lot of fun, but I'm also someone who played a lot of Ice Climbers in DDD and Project Plus as well, so maybe I just like degenerate characters. But I mean, yeah, this is all sort of makes sense. I wanted to like Lockstar. I really tried him. I gave him an honest shot, but I was hoping he'd have that DDD feel from Project Plus, but not so much on that front. But maybe Aether, if he gets added, that scratch that itch. So overall, my opinion on this game is a massive recommendation. While it's lost its charm from the original, its good and complex character designs has put this game into a great spot. Easily the best platform fighter released in a long time. I think it's safe to say it's the best non-Smash plat fighter in the genre. I think that's a pretty easy statement to not have contested. Maybe even competes with Project M in Melee, but we'll open that can of worms another time. Let's get more hours into this game first. The movement feels crisp, while not feeling overwhelming to learn. While this simultaneously gives new players the experience of learning sick movement, but not punishing veterans by removing anything. The team behind this game is super transparent and community focused, which will go a long way for this game's continued support. The base roster seems very diverse and has a lot of options. I'm sure you'll be able to find someone you really vibe with. And if you don't, there's multiple DLC characters in the works. If you are interested in the platform fighter genre at all, I highly recommend Rivals of Aether 2. So let me know down in the comments below, are you trying out Rivals of Aether 2? Is it something maybe you think you're going to pass up on? Or are you already a fan of it and you just want to check out someone's opinion? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, keep playing fighting games and have a good rest of your day.